I'm so sick of the word condemn. It's probably the most overused, ridiculous word. They don't go any further. And even today, it's just so irritating when we hear Democratic politicians talk about a two-state solution. What two-state solution? What are you going to do? I don't think they recognize what would have to happen in order to get these settlers out. There would have to be like full-on like war. These settlers would never leave. They have full-on rifles. How are you going to get these people to leave? They're not actually going to leave.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, along with his Defense Minister Israel Katz, have now announced that they will be escalating their war on the Palestinian people in the West Bank, following an incident that took place days ago in which settlers tried to terrorize Palestinians in their own homes. And Palestinians decided to defend themselves, which apparently is a grave sin in the West Bank. They're just supposed to allow these terrorists to terrorize them, to steal their homes, to light their homes on fire as their children are sleeping in them. Let me give you the details. The Israelis are calling for forceful action in villages acting as terrorist hubs, including arms confiscation, revocation of work permits and additional measures, reinforcement of units throughout Judea and Samaria, separation of traffic routes and checkpoints, and accelerating the legalization of farm outposts and establishments of new ones. So in other words, Israel plans to do what they had already been doing. They just intend to ramp things up even more. So now they're claiming that there was a terrorist attack that took place against Israelis. The real question is, what were Israelis doing in the West Bank to begin with? But of course, they feel entitled to any and all land, including land that stretches far past the West Bank. Let's be clear about that. The so-called terrorist attack they're referring to, by the way, took place days ago when armed Israeli settlers, backed by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, attacked the Palestinian village of Tal, which is near the city of Nablus. Now, Assam Saifi, who is a local leader in the Palestinian Fatah party from Tal, told Reuters the following. About 25 to 30 Israeli settlers initially attacked the eastern area of the town and tried to break into 2 houses there. The residents came out to confront them and the settlers opened fire. In other words, the Palestinians defended themselves, but that always comes at a steep price. So half an hour later, the Israelis returned and attacked the western part of the town, striking a child with a weapon. This caused chaos, and the Israeli military arrived and started shooting along with the settlers, which is totally unsurprising. And I want you to take a look at this video because this is the video the Israelis are using in order to justify their escalations of terrorism against the Palestinian people. What it shows is Israeli settlers advancing against and firing on a group of Palestinian residents in the area who were, again, attempting to defend themselves and their village from these settler terrorists. One Palestinian resident named Farouk Ramadan was able to take the gun from the settler and shoot him as he was firing on Palestinian civilians. The video shows a settler terrorist advancing on 2 civilians with his gun drawn and pushing them down with his gun when one grabs the gun and defends himself and other civilians in the crowd from the terrorist attack, the Israeli terrorist attack. And in the end, the death toll was, of course, heavier on the Palestinian side, with 4 Palestinians getting killed. There was 1 Israeli who was killed as well. Israeli settlers killed 4 Palestinian youths from the same family in the village of, I'm guessing, Tal, west of Nablus, as they tried to defend themselves, their village and their homes after the settlers attacked them with weapons. The settlers began shooting at them from close range. Now, luckily, we have an incredible person, a wonderful content creator that you may have come across, if not on social media, certainly on our show, because we've had him on before. We have Wally Rashid joining us now to give us some more details on this story. Wally, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Hey, Anna, thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So you have family near where this incident took place. So tell me about what your family personally has been experiencing in the West Bank at the hands of these Israeli settlers. And then we'll talk more specifically about this particular incident.
Yeah, my family's village, it's called Burin. So it's like 10 minutes. It's on the other side of this mountain, or I guess this big hill that Tel is on. So it's just, they're right across from each other. And immediately when this happened, of course, the Israelis, they stated that these guys were hikers going on hikes. These are armed settlers going down and terrorizing Palestinians. And then they warp it to make the Palestinians look like terrorists. But the settlement next to my family, it's called Yitzhar. And it's one of the most violent settlements in the occupied West Bank. They do this thing called price tag attacks, where they'll basically terrorize Palestinians and scare them, and they do it to basically put them into submission. And these are, a lot of these times when we talk about violent settlers, they're also called hilltop youth. These are like 13, 14-year-olds with rifles running around Palestinian towns. I remember when I visited my family in 2022, the first hour when I went to visit my family, all of a sudden these settlers come down, 13-year-olds, they'll put on like military uniform or IDF uniform, and they'll just start patrolling Palestinian villages as if they have any sort of authority to do that. And Palestinians, obviously, they run back into their homes because they know they can't get into any sort of confrontation. Again, the first hour, and I previously showed clips of my family's village when this happened on my YouTube, they came down and they just started setting fire to the entire hillside, the hillside of my family's village where there's olive trees. And then when the IDF comes, they'll stick an Israeli flag right on the ground and protect the settlers as the settlers terrorize the Palestinians. In my family's village, there was this house that was getting built. It was like, they were kind of a extended family, and they were building a house. They were building the house for maybe a year, and I guess the construction was halfway done. And it was on the hillside of my family's village, but apparently that upset the Israelis and the IDF. So the settlers would come down and they would start having lunch on the foundation of the house, and they just wouldn't allow them to build it anymore. Not because it's on land that it shouldn't be on, it's on Palestinian land, but they'll just terrorize them. And every day they'll come have lunch on the house. They'll just eat their sandwiches, do whatever, and the Palestinians can't do anything. So it's been like that for just a year. Every single day, Palestinians just basically have to be like in total submission to these people. And people say, "Oh, why can't Palestinians defend themselves?" The whole village will be razed. The whole village is razed. If a Palestinian defends himself, they'll flatten the whole village. And Smotrich said the day that this happened in Tel, he stated that they're going to be uprooting all the terrorist villages around Tel, including my family's. So I immediately reached out to my uncle and I asked him what's going on. And they put like a curfew on the village, on Burin, on the village nearby, which is called Iraq Burin. And they basically said there's a curfew, and Smotrich is now calling to just basically raise them and just all the surrounding villages in Tel, and should just build a new settlement. They already put an outpost there. So immediately after this event happened, they stuck an outpost. So basically an outpost is like a trailer home or something. And they'll just stick it up, and they'll have like 2 settlers live in the trailer home. And they'll do this on basically every hillside you'll see where a Palestinian town is in the valley.
I just when is enough for these people? I don't understand it. I really don't. When is enough for these people? Okay, so let's talk about the incident involving the terrorist settlers aggressively assaulting innocent Palestinians in their own village, their own homes. I had watched a video of a settler lighting a home on fire as a child slept. It was in the middle of the night. A child was sleeping in their room. And they're just happy to burn children alive. And yet there is no discussion in the international community, okay? This loathsome international community, and I mean that with every fiber of my being. They are loathsome. No discussion about doing something as these individuals are being terrorized. West Bank had nothing to do with what happened on October 7th, doesn't matter. West Bank, in fact, the political leadership of the Palestinians in the West Bank has gone out of its way to be very deferential to the Israelis with the hope that maybe we can have friendlier relations and the people of Palestine will be left alone. Of course, that didn't happen. It didn't work. Nothing is ever good enough for the Israelis, because once they have their sights set on land that doesn't belong to them, it's over. But maybe I'm wrong, Wally. Please help me reverse a little bit of the blackpilling. Is there anyone in the global community that gives a damn about this and wants to do something about it? And I'm talking about governments. I'm not talking about ordinary people ordinary people typically don't have power. But I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, government-wise, I thought you were I thought you just meant collectively, because Dana Bash and Jake Tapper definitely aren't going to say anything about it on CNN either. Government-wise, no, honestly, not really. I mean, if it comes to any actual government official, you'll never hear them actually talk about what needs to happen. You'll hear them toss and parrot around this thing like, oh, they condemn settler violence, but I'm so sick of the word condemn. It's probably the most overused, ridiculous word. They don't go any further. And even today, it's just so irritating when we hear Democratic politicians talk about a two-state solution. What two-state solution? What are you going to do? I don't think they recognize what would have to happen in order to get these settlers out. There would have to be like full-on war. These settlers would never leave. They have full-on rifles. How are you going to get these people to leave? They're not actually going to leave. The only thing I have at my disposal now, and last time I came on your show, we talked about how I'm working on settler sanctions, and that is something I'm actively doing, like freezing the assets of the settlers that terrorize Palestinians, freezing the assets of the settlement. It does help, it chokes them dry. And then previously, when we would freeze their assets, they would create GoFundMe accounts, and then we would freeze those GoFundMe accounts. And it helps. It actually helps, because then they're at least a bit more cautious before terrorizing a Palestinian. So we would do that, but I mean, that's not going to get them to pull out of the West Bank. That's not going to get them to do anything. And now even the Israeli opposition doesn't even, they're already stating they'll never allow for Palestinians to have self-determination. They'll never allow to have them, live in their land, just having pure freedom. I just my uncle, he's 70 years old. And he just lives a simple life. He wakes up, he'll have a cigarette, he'll just, hang around the garden, and he just has such a simple life. And I remember whenever I visit him, he's such a pure soul. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me so mad that he's just such a simple guy, and then you have these 13-year-old settlers come down and just terrorize him, and it's just I hate that he has to. I just hate that he has to live through this. And I hate that the world just doesn't. They really try to downplay how bad it is over there. I'm Palestinian, but I'm pretty pale skinned, and I've never experienced, aside from my name being Walid Rashid, I've never experienced actual racism in the U.S. I'm pretty privileged in that sense. Maybe discrimination because of my name, but that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But Anna, when I visited my family in the West Bank, I can't explain to you, I've never been looked at like a cockroach the way these settlers will look at you. They looked at me. I've never been looked at like that. They'll look at you like you're subhuman filth, like actually a cockroach. They actually find enjoyment killing you. But they'll post it. They'll take photos of dead Palestinians. They'll toss it on their Facebook groups. And I know. And they'll just get genuinely happy. And it's just they truly think you're just like vermin to exterminate. And you'll have these Israeli prime ministers like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir just edging that on. How are you supposed to live with these people? They don't even think you're human. They don't even think you're human.
It's reminiscent of Nazi propaganda and the way Nazis treated the Jews during the Holocaust. In fact, they would refer to the Jews as cockroaches. So, I mean, it's crazy to see the way, Zionist Jews, and look, I don't even want to say Zionists at this point. They are Jewish supremacists. Let's just call them what they are. They are Jewish supremacists. The way that they behave is reminiscent of Nazi Germany. And we're supposed to defend that? We're supposed to support that? No, there's no way in hell I ever would. But I'm worried about innocent people getting killed, getting hurt. I'm worried about your family. And a question that always comes up in my mind, and this is a difficult question to even ask, because I know that if I found myself in a situation like this, I would want to fight. I wouldn't want to be driven out of my home, my land. But I am curious, has there been any point where your family thought this isn't worth it? We need to flee. We need to get out of here.
I mean, my family, I have cousins and everything. So I've had some cousins leave. And then I have some family that's there, and they're like, we will die here. They're just set. They're not going to leave their land, no matter how much you try to pressure them. I mean, for example, my uncle, he's in his 70s. He's like, I've already lived 70 years here. I'm going to die here, and they don't care. And I mean, I'm privileged to live in the United States now. I mean, I was born in the United States, so to live in the United States, but it makes me sad at the same time. And I'd never pressure them not to leave if they don't want to, but they really, I feel like they recognize that if they leave, like it's more than just about them. It kind of represents something more, and they recognize they're like, no, I'd rather die here. I'd rather die before I'm going to be kicked off of my land. And I think they're some of the strongest people. I get so scared. I mean, I like, especially after this attack happened, because it was literally on the other side of the hill. It was right there. And then Smotrich says they're going to be leveling all the surrounding villages, which is in my family's village. I just feel like every day I'm waking up, I'm like going on Facebook Messenger, wherever I talk to my family over there, and I'm just like, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like they're next.
Yeah, and honestly, everything that's been going down in the West Bank kind of puts October 7th in a lot more perspective, because I'm always going to have a problem with targeting civilians, period. But when it comes to Hamas targeting Israeli military bases, what, the Palestinians don't have a right to defend themselves? Right?
No, you can't even talk about it. I mean, you probably saw, I think it was going viral, that interview with Ro Khanna, somebody from Dropsite News interviewed Ro Khanna.
Jeremy Scahill.
Yeah, exactly. And they asked him, and Ro Khanna, was kind of frozen, and he just didn't want to go there, because the idea of even questioning a Palestinian having the ability to defend themselves, you just can't even get anywhere near that conversation. It's like the idea of a Palestinian defending themselves is taboo. If you were sleeping at home and a settler comes in at 3 a.m. with a rifle to shoot your family, as a Palestinian, you have to be a good Palestinian and just raise your hands and die. That's what you have to do. Then a politician might feel bad for you. But if you're a Palestinian and you wake up at 3 a.m. to a settler terrorizing you, and you decide to attack back, well, actually, you're a terrorist. But it's just like any other place in the world, somebody would be like, no, you have a total right to kill somebody that comes in your house at 3 a.m. getting ready to kill you anywhere else. But if you're a Palestinian, the only way you'll garner sympathy is if you're dead. Maybe then after you're dead, then people will start to feel bad for you. Then people will be like, oh, it's okay. Politicians would rather have a dead Palestinian than one that defends themselves.
No, you're totally right about that. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Final question for you, because I am curious. Seeing the terror that Palestinians are dealing with at the hands of Israeli settlers in the West Bank actually increased my support for the Second Amendment. I was never in favor of banning guns, and like Jake and I would have debates about that. But now I'm more, confident in my resolve. Like I think it's important for people to have the right to, and the means to, defend themselves. And I don't trust our government to keep us safe. And so I just think it's really made me see the right to bear arms in a different light. That's not to say there are no downsides, but I think the upsides significantly outweigh the downsides. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're pretty privileged. We're not living there, or living in a situation like that where you actually wake up like worried for your life to that degree every single day, where you have people that are running down with weapons, like getting ready to kill you every single day. It's crazy, because in what other planet or what other place on earth could you have these people that are fully armed, and you have another group of people that they hate so much that they view as vermin, that are totally defenseless, they can't do anything. And then on top of that, you have synagogues in New York City fundraising money for thermal imaging drones and rifles, and they're sending it over there, and it's totally legal. Like, it goes through, the wire transfers goes through, they send the money, it's totally okay. There's an organization now called American Friends of Judea and Samaria, and they're lobbying politicians, and they've been fundraising money for bulldozers, and they're sending it over. And Palestinians can't do anything. They can't defend themselves, nothing. So no, I'm very pro Second Amendment now, absolutely. I mean, I hope that we'll never have to experience anything like that here in the United States, but I also don't, like you said, I don't trust our government. I mean, if our government's doing all of these horrible atrocities right now, and then even if you look at what they're starting to implement here in the United States, no, absolutely, I don't trust them.
Yeah.
No.
So Wally, I want to make sure that our audience can support the work you're doing. So please let them know where they can find your work, and if they can support your efforts in this, effort to sanction these settlers.
Yeah, you could find me everywhere on Wally Rashid. So just WAL, just my name, my first and last name. I'm on YouTube, and you can support me there. And then also, if you want to check out your politician's voting record on Israel, go to votelog.org. It's a website I built a few months ago, so you can check your entire politician's voting record there. Otherwise, yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Anna.
Incredible. Thank you for the work you're doing, Wally, and keep in touch.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.